I had my regular password and my financial password. So I used the financial one for my bank and any credit cards, and I used the other one for everything else. Life was pretty simple. I was probably only logging into 20 or 30 sites. A recent study has found that most people now have over 100 different passwords that they're trying to manage. Some people have well over 200. So it's gotten a lot bigger and getting bigger all the time. So problem one, too many. Problem two is we're not real good at picking good passwords. Most people err more on the side of picking simple passwords so they can remember them. But the simple ones that are easy to remember are also easily hacked, which is one of the biggest problems. You don't want somebody hacking into your passwords. There's some ways you can sort of have both. You can have a fairly secure password that you can remember. And what the experts recommend doing is having a password phrase instead of we typically use a word. So instead of having my dog's name is Elsa, as a lot of you know, instead of having my password be Elsa 21, you can have a password like I love to travel and eat pizza 72 exclamation point. So you've got lots of characters, uppercase and lowercase, you've got a number, and you've got a special character. That is a lot harder to hack into than Elsa 21. Especially if you make this something easy to remember. I graduated high school in 72, so that was why I would pick that one. That's not one that I use, so don't try to hack my account. But that's an example of a fairly secure one that is not as easily hacked, but you can remember it. What we tend to do, unfortunately, is to pick passwords like these. These are from a study that actually has the top 200 passwords. I just picked the first 5. You get the idea from there. But what is it? 2,800,000 people are using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as their password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the trend there. Test 1. That's pretty creative. And of course, the all-time favorite password. I'm surprised that's not number 1. A lot of people still use password for their password. So yeah, we're not really good at picking good passwords. So that's the second problem. The third problem is using the same password for multiple accounts. There have been several studies now, but the one I was looking at is a 2019 data breach investigation, found that 80% of data breaches are caused by weak passwords. We just talked about that, and reused passwords. As we mentioned, weak passwords are easy to hack. The problem with reusing passwords is that if somebody hacks your password one place, they will try and get into other sites using that same username and password. So if you're using the same username and password to log into your local grocery store that you use to log into your bank, there's probably a better chance they're going to hack into your grocery store. But once they've got it, then they can get into multiple places. So what the experts say is you should have unique passwords for everything. That's kind of tough. We'll talk a little more about that. But reusing passwords is the third problem, and we all do that, present company included. I haven't totally fixed that problem for myself either. Questions about the problem? And just to kind of summarize, keeping up with all the passwords, coming up with complex and secure passwords, and not using the same password for multiple accounts, that is the challenge. Let's talk about how we're managing our passwords right now. We probably all started with this one, a paper notebook of some type, which was easy and actually worked fairly well, I guess, when we had even up to 10 or 12 passwords. Yeah, when you get to over 50, it gets really hard to maintain, because we have to change our passwords a lot. For one reason, lots of sites now make you change your password at least once a year. And it's hard to keep it in alphabetical order or in any order where it's easy to find a password. And it's not always with you is a big problem. At least hopefully it's not with you. If you don't have it with you, you're at a friend's house, you're on vacation, you're at the hotel and you're trying to log into the computer in the lobby, you don't have your passwords. If you're carrying it around with you, it's an even bigger problem, because if you leave it down there beside the computer in the hotel, you've given away everything. So Not a great option, but still one that a lot of people are using. Kind of the next step up that a lot of people are still using is using a spreadsheet or some other document, a Word document, to put their emails and passwords and their usernames and passwords. Sorry. And this one's a little easier to maintain since it is an electronic document. You can easily copy over your last password. It's a little easier to manage. You can, if it's in a spreadsheet, which is what most people use, you can sort it. You could even put other sorting factors to help you find the right one. If you store it in a cloud storage system, you've got access to it from everywhere. So it takes care of one of the problems. And if you store it in a spreadsheet or some of the other ways to store it there, you can even password protect it. You can password protect an Excel spreadsheet, for example. So if someone did get to your spreadsheet without their password, they couldn't open it. So much more secure than paper and pencil. Still has some problems though. It doesn't automatically update as you create and change passwords. It's still a manual process, open to typos when you're typing in the new password or forgetting to put in the new password after you change it. It doesn't automatically fill your username and password into websites you're visiting. You've got to manually enter it. It doesn't help at all with secure passwords. It's just storing what we're giving it. And it doesn't have master password encryption that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but this is kind of the highest level of security to protect your passwords. And again, if anyone has questions, comments, please go ahead and unmute and ask away. Let's bump up to the next level, and we're kind of getting better, as you probably guess, as we're moving through these options. And this is browser-based password managers. And you probably are all using one of these, or at least have used one of these. You may or may not even know that you're doing it or exactly what's happening, but all the major browsers have a feature to save your passwords and then fill your passwords into websites as you go to the login pages. So if you create a new password, it'll ask you if you want to store that new password. If you update your password, it'll ask you if you want to store the updated password. If you go to a site, it automatically puts in the username and password for you. It just magically pops in. You've probably noticed that happening. Maybe not quite sure what's going on. That is your browser doing that in the background. So much easier to use than the